and this is a story that he told immediately after the attacks and then in 2002, and it's pretty much told every single person ever since. But, you know, the truth movement is the only, you know, group of people that ever actually brought attention to it. And, you know, of course, the debunkers love to talk about, you know, they love to use Barry Lichty when it makes it sound like he's proving us wrong, but they love to avoid him when he talks about a military plane flying over his house immediately after the crash.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things about that day that don't add up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially Shanksville, and that's the thing about it being such an obscure place in the middle of nowhere is, I mean, not to say that anything could have happened, but there's a very wide range of possibilities. But, I mean, the simple fact of the matter is the immediate helicopter coverage, which couldn't have come more than an hour or two after the crash, shows no plane whatsoever. And, I mean, you can look at every aircraft incident in history, both with, you know, twin-engine, quadruple-engine, single-engine aircraft. They always leave something. There's always wreckage. There's a tail. There's an engine. There's a cockpit. There's some kind of, you know, hint that a commercial jet, 100 tons of metal crashed into the ground. And at Shanksville, you've got a plane-shaped hole, like a cartoon-like outline.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry, but there's just nothing there. And, I mean, you know, the helicopter shot is one thing that you could possibly, you know, play devil's advocate on. But, I mean, the close-up photographs the FBI released in 2006, I mean, there's just nothing there.
Sure. One thing that I remember when 9/11 happened, from listening to the TV and the radio as it was going on, was that there was a lot of talk about other planes that were renegade planes that were kind of off the grid. Specifically, there was talk about planes being over Texas. Do you remember any of that stuff? And do you think that maybe some of that stuff was sort of meant, kind of pushed to go away by the government?
I do remember the report about the plane on the Ohio-Kentucky border. I remember that one pretty explicitly. You know, and there were a lot of reports of, you know, suspicious items being found on other planes and spare airline uniforms and things that looked like they had been placed there by someone on the inside. So there was a lot of stuff that came out in the aftermath that we never heard again about. So it's, I don't know. It's tough to say.
Sure.
And, I mean, I don't know how many things have that much truth to it, because a lot of those things are, you know, the things that were reported once and then went away. It's really tough to say. I mean, I haven't heard any confirmation per se of any of the flights that were supposedly, you know, downed or, you know, went down over specific areas. But, you know, there's just so much news floating around at that period of time, and, you know, it is kind of hard to filter out exactly what's true and what was just, you know, misinformation. Like, you know, a bomb at the State Department, which obviously turned out to be false.
Right. Sure. Absolutely. And I mean, maybe that's part of what was kind of wanted, was was a lot of chaos making a lot of things, which makes it, you know, a lot easier to deny a lot of things because there was so much chaos.
Exactly. So, you know, again, it's filter out what was disinformation and what was something that was only reported once.
Sure. Absolutely, man. Well, Dylan, I'm always curious, you know, with guys like yourself, or I'll specifically point to Alex Jones as well, you know, guys that so boldly put it out there, and probably more Alex Jones than you, because I think you just let the facts speak for themselves. You just put what your research finds out there and let people decide. But I'm curious for you yourself, do you ever worry about your own safety? Because clearly if everything is true and the government did, you know, plot this whole thing and they have no concern at all for life, what stops them from, you know, taking out a little guy like yourself or Alex Jones or somebody else, you know, that's fronting a truth movement?
Well, I mean, at first I was definitely concerned, and I had one anonymous phone call that kind of freaked me out, and I did have, you know, I had someone following us at a protest in late 2007, but you know, I think it was, you know, at first I was nothing and no one really cared about Loose Change, and then the second edition just kind of went supernova.
Right.
So if there ever was an opportunity to screw with me, then they didn't take it. But I mean, I honestly think that their best defense is to just leave me alone. And I mean, you know, to be completely honest with you, nothing would vindicate me more than for something bad to happen to me. Because then, especially if it happened under suspicious circumstances, then people would kind of be forced to admit I was onto something.
Right. Sure. I mean,
that's at least my defense. And I mean, I pray nothing ever happens to me. And I'm lucky that nothing has. And you know,
right. Well, I can just tell you, I can remember times when I was in bar fights and then I'd spend the next 2 weeks looking over my shoulder. I certainly can't imagine taking on this big 900-pound gorilla and not being at least concerned from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had my share of concern, but I mean, I guess I just tried to see it as, part of the job per se and just doing what I had to do. But, I'm thankful that I can kind of take a step back now and kind of focus on just being myself again.
Excellent. Well, the new film is called Loose Change, American Coup. Dylan, why don't you go ahead and give the plug where people can find out more about the movie and, maybe buy it, maybe torrent it, but however they got to get it.
So, yeah, Chris, the film is Loose Change, an American Coup. They can, the official website is loosechange911.com. They can get the DVDs online, pretty much any store they can think of. It's carried by Netflix, so, if you have a Netflix account, you can get it that way. And they carry physical copies in Barnes & Noble, so you can get it that way, too.
Excellent. All right, Dylan, well, good luck with it, man. We'll hopefully some people will pick it up, and if nothing else, hopefully, no matter how they obtain it, they learn a little something.
Absolutely, and that's all it's ever been about, just getting the information out and kind of getting people to question the news events, whatever aspect of it may be.
All right, well, let's take a break, and we'll be back with something else. It's all the news.